Hello crafters, this is Yana Smakula for SimonsSTM.com. Welcome back for another Yippee for Yana episode. In this video, I'm making quick and easy Christmas cards with some simple techniques that anyone can do. I'm working with an older stamp set from Simon. This is the Merry Christmas Trees set. It is one of my favorites for quirky Christmas cards. I love the style used to illustrate these trees. It is just so fun and whimsical and different. I started working on my cards by heat embossing every single image from this set in white embossing powder on Simon's STM green apple cardstock. I'm using the mini MISTI stamping tool here, and I have my cardstock panel placed inside the MISTI. I treated it with an anti-static powder tool. You need to do that if you plan to do any heat embossing, as this will help you keep your embossing nice and neat, and it will eliminate those greasy fingerprints. Next, I ink the images with clear embossing ink, and I stamp them onto the panel. I used Hero Art's detail white embossing powder and covered my panel with the white powder. I want to have the green trees with a white outline. The white outline here will help create the illusion of snow, and I just feel like it is a better fit for a Christmas card. I used my heat tool and I heat set the powder to melt it. You have quite a lot of images in this set, and I embossed every single one of them as I wanted to have a good selection of trees when putting my cards together. Now, this is an easy technique and an easy card design to replicate. If you need to create multiple cards, it is not hard to heat emboss a bunch of trees. You can just pre-cut several panels and heat emboss the trees onto multiple panels at once to have a bunch of trees to make a bunch of cards. Next, I used the coordinating dies and I cut all of these trees out. The trees will create the focal point on my cards. Next, I thought about a background. Now, I wanted to use colored cardstock for the background, as I often do, and I planned to go with the Simon Says Stamp Sea Glass cardstock, which is a very pretty light blue. I love using it for Christmas cards. But I didn't want to just add my Christmas trees onto the background and call it done. I wanted to do something else, and I had this idea to create a snowy dome around the tree and around the sentiment. Almost like a snow globe, but without the clearly defined bottom. Now, I didn't have the exact dome snow stencil in my stash, but I did have some other supplies that I knew I could use or adapt to execute my idea. First, I looked for a dome-shaped object in my stash, and I found this glimmer plate from Spellbinders. The shape was perfect for what I had in mind, so I used that. If you don't have this shape, or if you don't have a similar shape that you can use, you can just use a circle shape. We all have a circle in our stash. If you don't have a circle something, just go into the kitchen and grab a cup and use that. Then you need to trace the top half of the circle, draw vertical lines from the top going down, and then add a horizontal line at the bottom to complete the dome shape. It's super easy. And it doesn't have to be perfect. It's not going to be on our finished card. Now, what this is going to be, it is going to be a mask. So I traced this onto printer paper, so thin paper. Next, I used scissors and I cut my shape out, making sure to keep the outline shape intact. Again, we don't need perfection. We just need a simple mask with a dome shape. For my next step, I used a sheet of sea glass cardstock and I cut it into 4 panels that measure 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches. I heat embossed a sentiment in white embossing powder onto each panel. The sentiments come from the Christmas Blessings stamp set from Simon Says Stamp. I love the font used for these messages, and I also love the combination of different fonts. You know, we have the main word in a script font and then additional wording done in a regular font. Now, the sentiment sort of works as the bottom for our dome. It completes or helps us complete the dome shape. So now that I have my background panels and I have my makeshift masks, we can go ahead and work on the background. So just place the mask onto the background, center it as much as possible, and tape it in place. Now, if you use the printer paper, it makes it very easy to center your panel behind the mask, as the printer paper is thin and somewhat see-through, so you can see through that paper to align the cardstock panel behind it. Next, I have my snow stencil. This is the Falling Snow stencil from Simon Says Stamp. You can use any similar stencil you have in your stash. I love this particular stencil because of how these snow dots are cascading here. So we have a lot of dots clustered at the top and then fewer and fewer dots as we move down to the bottom of this stencil. I taped the stencil in place over the paper mask, and I'm using the grid paste in Snowfall from Tim Holtz to create the snow effect on my card. Now, the paste will dry clear. It also has some glitter mixed into it, and that gives it a really nice, realistic snow effect. When you look at it, it really does seem like this is snow, and it is just starting to melt. It is a very cool product, especially for winter and Christmas cards. Now, if you don't have this particular paste, you can use just any regular texture paste, just use a white texture paste and maybe add some glitter on top, and you're going to have a beautiful result. As I remove the stencil from my paper mask, you can see how beautiful this looks. Keep in mind, this looks white now, but as the grid paste dries, it will become clear. Now, you can also step this design up a little bit by adding some basic ink blending before applying the paste. Here I have the Simon Says Stamp white ink. This is a pigment ink, and I'm going to ink blend some of this ink onto my dome shape, mostly at the top of the dome, to help define the shape a little bit better. Now, I'm not blending the entire shape, dome shape, the entire opening. I'm just blending the top semicircle part, and I'm not adding too much ink either. Right now, it is actually nearly invisible, I would say. It doesn't look like much, but you will be able to see it when I remove the paper mask. So you can ink blend some white ink before you add the snow onto your card if you want to have more definition to your dome. And here's what it looks like with all of that ink blending and the snow paste. I adhered my panels to A2 top folding card bases, and next I added my heat embossed trees on top. For some cards, like this one, I just went with one large tree, and then on the other cards, I used these smaller trees, several smaller trees. This design is very simple, yet it looks beautiful and elegant and very clean. For this card, where I didn't do any ink blending, I also added white dots using a Jelly Roll white pen. I also added some embellishments to my card. For this one with a large tree, I adhered the sequins onto the tree to mimic tree ornaments. And for the other cards, I used Spellbinders gems in opal to create the look of the little ornaments on the tree. The gems are smaller than the sequins, so I used gems for these smaller tree shapes. If you make a card inspired by this video, we'd love it if you shared your project online and tagged us on social media. We always enjoy seeing what you make. Thanks so much for joining me today. Love you guys, and I'll see you next time.
I'm Heidi, Simon's mama and founder at SimonsSaysStamp.com. Thank you so much for watching our video. If you like what you just saw, be sure to press the thumbs up and subscribe to see more great content.